Hi, and welcome to Behind the Bell ATL with the Salvation Army of Metro Atlanta. I'm your host, Keely McGill. The goal of this podcast is to provide listeners with a glimpse of what the Salvation Army does. Many people tell us that they know we provide support to those in the community who need it, but they don't know exactly what we do. We hope to change that through our conversations with Army staff, clients, and community partners. Thanks for joining us. Hi everyone, welcome back to Behind the Bell, and today we have Amy Glennon.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks, Keely.
Oh, I love that we have you here today. To get started, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and what is your connection with the Salvation Army?
What I do? Well, professionally, my background is in media and in newspapers. I'm retired now, but worked many years at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and for Cox. But since retirement, I've been involved with the Salvation Army and a few other nonprofits, but this one is grown very close to my heart. I'm the incoming chair of the advisory board and excited to see what we can do.
So talking about the advisory board, what kind of initially led you to start and join the Salvation Army's advisory
How to get
council?
here? Well, to be honest, I didn't really know a lot about the Salvation Army when I got started here. A friend of mine was on the board at the time and he was rolling off and he said, "You need to do this." And I said, "Okay, well, let me see what that's about." And I began to learn a little bit more about the Army and was just very impressed with what they do and their presence here in Atlanta.
Yeah, so talking about your connection to the Army, what about the Salvation Army's mission really connects with you personally?
You know, I think it's the Army helps people where they are and they help the most vulnerable. I think particularly for me, the efforts that the Army does to house the most vulnerable. And obviously, we're extremely excited about the Center of Hope coming open early in the new year. But to know that you can help somebody who has lost hope and offer something, it's a powerful thing to do, and it just feels very good.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Some people often they hear about the Salvation Army, but they don't necessarily know all about our missions and all the areas we touch. And so it's nice to hear from our advisory board members, what is your personal connection?
Yeah. Well, I would say, and I'll just add this in, that, I am now involved and I now know so much of what we do, but I truly only knew about ringing the bells at Christmas and the thrift stores and those kinds of things. And becoming part of the advisory board and learning how much of the social safety net of Atlanta the Army plays a part in. It's really gratifying to see, and it kind of revs you up. So I would say that to others. If you want to know more, ask, because there's a whole lot going on.
Oh, for sure. Talking about advisory councils, can you tell me a little bit about, what makes a good advisory council member and what is a great partnership you see with the Salvation Army?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Advisory boards are interesting because they play a more advisory role than a traditional board, which is fantastic because we have people from all different types of backgrounds on the advisory board. So they bring different skill sets. They bring kind of their expertise in whatever field they're in to the board. They also bring their network and their connections, which is important. And this is a very engaged board. It's always nice to get on boards and feel the passion among the members and people who really want to roll up their sleeves and do things. And I've found that to be very true with this board, and it feels good.
Oh, I love hearing that. And you talked a little bit about, the different careers, but what about your career has led you to kind of really join on an advisory board?
Yeah. I always say I'm not sure that I have any super specific skills. With a media background, I am trained to ask questions and to analyze and synthesize information. And I think that's always somewhat helpful when there's a complex organization. So being able to see all that we do and understand all the parts and how they connect, I think helps. I also come from kind of a communications background. So as we deal with how we're going to tell our story and give our message, I hope that I have a little bit of a voice in that. But I guess that's learn from.
And you said, you don't have to have a specific career to be on an advisory board.
Right.
And so hearing, that your background's in communications and media, I can already tell from the meetings we've been on, you can sense it. And you like to put people where they're very strong, and especially across the Salvation Army. And so I can already sense that from the meetings that I've been on with you already. But it's cool to hear, the different backgrounds that people bring and from their previous careers onto the board. What would you say makes it is a successful quality of an advisory board member?
Well, I think first and foremost for this one in particular, but probably on any board, is just a passion for the mission of that organization. If you really feel strongly about it, then it's not work. It's something you want to be doing and you're happy to be doing. So I think the passion is there. And then I think it's, we always talk about time, talent, and treasure, but you kind of want a little bit of that from everybody. So be willing to also bring, your network and to be an ambassador for the Salvation Army and talk about what we do. And I think most of our experiences when we have this conversation with the board, most people don't know all of what, or even much of what the Salvation Army does in Atlanta. And so if the advisory board can be ambassadors to kind of spread the word of what all the Army is doing and how deeply embedded it is in Atlanta for, 100 years, 150 years or something, yeah. I think here. It's incredible. So help tell the story.
I love that. Also talking about, the advisory board, can you just share how the advisory board being in place in Atlanta is so impactful to the Army?
Yeah. Well, I think I would say I would use the recent capital campaign that we did and kind of talk about that. It's, this is the connecting point. If you've got longtime Atlantans and people who have been in many of the businesses in Atlanta or other organizations that kind of have deep roots, and then you have a capital campaign, you want to stretch out with those connections and talk to people and let people know what the Army is doing and how they can help the Army do what it needs to do. And I think when you have a diverse board that has lots of tentacles in the community, that's very helpful.
So Amy, can you share a little bit about, what out of all the services that we provide, which one of the services really connects with you the most?
Yeah, well, there's so much, but I guess what I would say is our efforts to house the homeless. I think when you go to Red Shield, which is our longtime 50-year-old shelter downtown, and see what goes on there and the people who are there and being helped, you can't help but being moved by that. And now with the Center of Hope coming online late this year, early next, we're going to be able to add to that and bring so much more to it. But we're also bringing a workforce development center on board with the Center of Hope, which I think has enormous potential. In the end of the day, we're trying to not just house people for a few nights and help them out. We're trying to help change lives, and we're trying to give people a chance, an opportunity to step up and be what they want to be. But you got to have some help in that situation. You got to help train people, and you got to give them some opportunities, and got to help connect them to where those jobs are. And I think we have enormous opportunity with the Workforce Development Center. So that's kind of two things, I think. I'm saying, the housing of the holes, and then the wraparound services, but particularly the workforce development, to see if we can really give people, the step they need to get where they want to be.
Yeah, and something that bugs me often is that people think of a homeless shelter being a negative place or not a great thing. And I think in the Army, we do a great job of making it a place of being welcoming, of a place of, potential hope, and changing that idea of what a homeless shelter can be in our community. I think is so great.
You're absolutely right. And I'm just going to chime in on that part too. But I think, we talk a lot and through this whole capital campaign about the dignity aspect of the Center of Hope. And when you go tour it now, and I was recently on a hard hat tour down there, it's such an inviting atmosphere, and it's such a bright, cheerful place, and offers our clients a chance to have a little bit more privacy. We'll be able to keep families together, which is enormously important, an area for veterans, which is enormously important, but also, you have a place that can be yours there. And I think that makes an enormous difference.
And I say this almost in every podcast. At the Salvation Army, we like to meet people at their needs.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that resonates with me the most. And just doing these interviews, we hear it so often and from different areas on how we meet people at their needs, no matter what service they're receiving from us.
Yeah.
So how do you see Atlanta evolving and the impact that the advisory board will have in helping us with those changes?
It's a great question. You know, if you look at where the economy is right now, and you look particularly at Atlanta's economy, we have a huge gap, a wealth gap, an income gap, and it's getting wider. And so that you have a lot of what you would term the working poor, people who frankly can't afford housing, even though they are employed. I think there's often a misconception that, everyone who's homeless is also jobless in this, but no, trying to survive on a minimum wage job, especially if you have children or something in that, it's not viable. And I think we're going to see that in Atlanta continue to happen unless there is strong concerted effort to say this gap is not healthy for us. We have to bridge that, or it hurts the entire community. So I think as that goes, as Atlanta's economic profile changes, we have to be there along with many other of the service sector nonprofits, but to help folks who are being pushed out by that income gap. It's a devastating thing to think you can have a job and still not afford to live. And I don't see that changing anytime real soon. So I think there's a huge need for us to help people both have a place to stay, but also, again, I'll go back to the workforce development. If we can help them, elevate their job skills, other things, get them qualified for higher paying jobs, things like that, we have to figure out what we can do.
Yeah, or even access to, we do utility assistance, yes, or food pantries. There's multiple, webs that we have across that can support people who might be in that area. And I see that too. I see the advisory board taking a big jump and taking on some of that, of branching out, and the awareness of that. We have these services offered, but also we have to make sure that these services are up to scale for what our community needs. Yeah. So speaking about all of our different areas, I'm very curious to know, what is something that you personally resonate, or like in your time on the board, that has like really stuck out to you?
I saw this clip. It's a show, I guess it's a Netflix show, and it came across my feed the other day, and I think the show's called Afterlife, Ricky Gervais or something, but it's a clip in which a woman who I believe is part of the afterlife says to him, happiness and what you're supposed to do in life, something to that effect. She's saying, good people help other people. That's it. And I thought, that defines a lot of what we do. And it defines that board to me. These are good people trying to do good things and trying to help other people. And it really doesn't get much simpler than that. I mean, the problems are complex, and there's a lot to do, but good people help other people.
So the Salvation Army runs on many different avenues in many different places, from our volunteers to people who donate to us, to our staff, our advisory boards and councils. What would you say to really get people involved, whether it's donating or volunteering?
Yeah, I would say get to know the Salvation Army and all of the things you're talking about. I mean, we shelter people, we feed people, we help people with their rent and utilities and things like that when they're in need. We connect people to other services that they need. And we do it in a pretty big scale in Atlanta, but the need is huge. So I would say, if you're thinking about donating to a charity, there are many worthy ones in Atlanta, but I would tell you, look to the Salvation Army too, because we do so much. It is an incredibly respected organization. Your money goes to the work. We have a very high percentage of the dollars we bring in that goes to the services that we provide, and that always feels good. So I would say, if there's a particular area that you are interested in, either in volunteering or in just donating, look to the Salvation Army, because we do youth services. We feed people, we house people, we connect them through workforce development. There are many, many avenues. I mentioned the youth services. I did. So if kids are your thing, we have that too. But all of these things are plugging into the lives of real people and changing lives and helping lives. So if there's a particular area that you're very interested in, we probably have an outlet for that, and your money is very well spent.
Yeah, one thing I've loved is the transparency. Like, the Army is very transparent on, when you donate, it goes to X, Y, and Z, and it's going directly to support these different areas. And if you can actually choose that when you go to donate on our page, like, I want my funds to go directly to youth programming or general operation. And I love that we're so open about where everything is going, but also that nothing is too small. Whether you can only donate, 20 minutes of your time, that 20 minutes can make a lasting impact down the road to a future family. And they might never know that you were there doing that, but it makes such a big impression on our community.
Absolutely. And plug all the things. We've got Canathon coming up. You can help feed people that, and it's not hard. They're out there. We're out there. We make it easy. Bring things to the thrift stores, drop those off. We have Angel Tree Warehouse, so we can help put together the packages of gifts for kids. And that's enormous. I did that a year or two ago with my daughter, and it's an incredible experience. You're putting this out, and thousands of children have a better Christmas because of it, and it feels good to help. And it's not a hard lift. You just go do it. Yeah. It's not hard.
I tell people you get to play Santa for a day when you get to go and package those gifts.
Exactly, and it's an impressive beehive of activity when you go out to this enormous warehouse, and it's stacked almost floor to ceiling with gifts that are headed to folks who otherwise would not have much of a Christmas.
So, can you share me a little bit about what you're excited for the future with the advisory board and the Salvation Army?
Yeah. Well, so many things, I would say. There's so many things on the horizon, but truly the opening of the Center of Hope, and in particular, the Workforce Development Center. We have not offered something like that in the kind of depth we hope to do it with the Workforce Development Center. And I think, helping people at their most vulnerable is getting them a clean, safe place to stay that they can feel okay in. But really helping to change the equation or, change lives is giving them the skills they need to change their own lives. And if we can figure out the right programming in that Workforce Development Center, and I'm sure that we will, then you break cycles of homelessness. And that's when you're doing the bigger work and you're changing lives for the long haul. Yeah. So that's, I think, what I'm most excited about.
Oh, I love hearing that, and I'm so excited, and I think all of us here at the Salvation Army are so excited for this to come live for our community. What would you share to somebody who's interested, maybe potentially being on a nonprofit advisory board, and how do you even get there if you're interested in it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. First off, I would just say do it, but find organizations that fit your passion and something that you really care about, and then just go get involved. Sometimes you can, get on a board immediately, but sometimes just go volunteer with them and figure out if it's something that you really like. I mean, I kind of, to be honest, lucked into this one because the person that I knew on the board just said, do it. And I think he needed somebody to fill his seat or something. He was trying to be a responsible board member who was rolling off, but it got me to look into the Salvation Army. And then by looking in, I realized all the things that were being done. And that really kind of moved me to say, I do want to be part of this. So I would tell anybody, nonprofit boards can be enormously rewarding personally to feel like you've had a hand in at least doing some good. And Lord knows we need it all over. So if there's something that you're passionate about, I would say go find those organizations, check them out, and go get involved.
I love hearing that, and I love that, coming from an outside person, that there's still a connection rooted in what our mission is and our connection that we do for our community. So I want to say thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. It's been amazing to just hear your perspective on advisory boards and your personal connection with the Army. It was great to hear, and I appreciate you sharing. But if there's anything lasting you want to tell our listeners, I'm sure they would love to hear it. This is your time.
last finishing words. Mm-hmm. I guess what I would say is the Salvation Army is more than you think it is. I think we hear that all the time. Oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did that. So we are working more and more all the time to get the word out. But I would just plant that seed. And if you're hearing about it around the holidays, which is probably the most likely time you're going to hear about the Salvation Army, let that be your stepping stone to find out all that the Army does. Because I think when you look, it's a huge piece of what makes this city work, and helps support the most vulnerable citizens that we have here. And we got to have that to make the whole puzzle work. So I would leave that message.
That a lot. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. And as always, we'll have links below to everything that we discussed. So if you want to donate or volunteer, they'll be below. And we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Keely. It's been fun.
Oh, thank you. Bye, everybody.